So recently there seems to be a lot of interest around the concept of cooking and eating things, particularly monsters, in all sorts of RPGs and other fantasy media. And I'm here to tell you, we're gonna make this happen in D&D. We are going to be cooking. Just let me cook. I think a lot of this is coming from Dungeon Meshi, or Delicious in Dungeon as the normies would say, which is, in my professional opinion, an absolute chef's kiss anime. But I also just saw a trailer the other day for this really cool looking game called Chef RPG, and there's the book Legends and Lattes that's got this sort of vibe going on, and you know, there's Breath of the Wild, Monster Hunter, and Final Fantasy. I mean, the Japanese homies have been doing this gourmet fantasy thing for a while now, honestly. And here's a fun little fact about your boy, actually. I used to be a professional cook, and I too love fantasy, RPGs, and cooking. And so I have, for a very long time now, been into the idea of incorporating the skill, the craft of cooking, into my homebrew D&D shenanigans. So today we are going to talk about not only why I think cooking and eating monsters in D&D is a really cool and fun concept to play around with, I'm also going to show you how you can do it super easily with a very modular D6 table system that I designed myself. It's in a Google Doc right now in the description down below for your own personal usage. And you can use this content absolutely free, because I love you guys and I want you to cook up some crazy monster meals that are absolutely dripping with flavor. And speaking of drip, that's right baby, we got the sponsorship. So this video is sponsored by Into the AM. Into the AM makes these awesome graphic t-shirts and hoodies and other types of apparel that have really cool, unique fantasy and sci-fi themes. I am actually a giant, bulbous freak of nature of a man, and so it's actually really difficult for me to find t-shirts that fit me well and are comfortable. And I gotta say, I really dig this shirt. They're really comfy, they're really breathable, they have all sorts of cool graphics. You can look at the website and find some designs that inspire you for your campaign. And according to my notes here, they are running a bundle deal where you can get 3 graphic tees for just over $60. And if you use my code PROS at checkout, you will get an additional 10% off your order. So I don't know, that's a pretty good deal. That's a spicy meatball, I would say. And I'll get a little bit of cheddar cheese too, okay? So it's really the best thing you can do to support the channel. Thank you so much Into the AM for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to cooking. So first things first, you need a tasty narrative hook to incentivize your players to even want to try to get their chef on in the first place. If you're starting a brand new campaign, your players can easily integrate this into their backstory. So maybe you have a barbarian who wants to become a chef to share his culture's cuisine with the world. Or maybe you have an alcoholic wizard mixologist, whatever. And at that point, they've already done the heavy lifting for you. But more likely than not, you're already in the middle of a campaign and nobody has a Gordon Ramsay wannabe character already lined up. So maybe you could set up some sort of cooking competition that's coming up sometime soon in a nearby town, and maybe a bad guy is joining. Or maybe the top prize is an awesome magical item that your players have been begging you for. Or you could have them traverse a really deep mega dungeon where they won't have easy access to other resources. Basically, anytime the players have to travel from point A to point B for an extended period of time could be a great excuse to introduce this cooking system into your game. And that's the thing, right? It's always kind of bugged me that rations and resource management in general has just been kind of hand-waved away by most people playing D&D, including myself, because we just assume that everyone is eating enough fiber and drinking enough water while they're out on the trail or traversing the dungeons. And that's totally fine, because tracking the amount of jerky your players are eating on a day-by-day basis is not really a fun thing to do, but fighting cool monsters and chopping them up, tossing a bunch of dice into a pot and seeing what kind of crazy creations you come up with is actually really fun. So this is a great way to take a boring, mostly forgotten aspect of the typical D&D experience and turn it into something new and exciting for your players to interact with. Okay, so here's how you can cook fun dishes with useful effects in D&D. So as you can see here, we're essentially assigning certain flavor profiles or keywords to different monsters and other ingredients that your players could pick up while they're adventuring dungeons or wherever. So for example, a tiny little myconid could be earthy and savory, but he could also be bitter and mushy if cooked incorrectly. So there's positive and negative flavor profiles that are also tied to positive and negative effects that the final dishes will produce for their consumers, like healing or cold resistance and stuff like that. These flavor keywords are assigned to numbers on a 6-sided die. You need at least 2 ingredients to cook, so you take 2 dice, preferably of different colors, and assign them the ingredients you're cooking. So you could have like a brown or gold die for the mushroom die, and then you could also use a green die for dryad leaves or something like that, and you toss them together and you see what happens. The numbers you roll will determine what sweet and savory dish you've created, and what kind of sweet and savory effects that dish will have on its consumer. Now wait, Paladin, this doesn't make sense, because if I want to be a chef, how am I going to fulfill my chef power fantasy when I'm just randomly rolling dice and I keep getting these nasty dishes with poopy results? Well, I am so glad you asked, mon ami. As your players level up, you can give them benefits to their cooking skill, which makes it more and more likely that they will roll positive traits when they're cooking up their dishes. You can also literally give your players a little physical notebook to write their recipes down in. You know, you can go down to the store and buy one of these things for like $2 and give it to your player, and it's their character's own personal cookbook. And as they're experimenting with cooking at the game, they can write down the recipes that work. And then when they slay more monsters that have the same flavor profile traits that they already know, they can spend their downtime cooking. This rewards players for interacting with the system and experimenting by allowing them to produce the dishes that they've already discovered on their own to give their friends some neat benefits. And when you inevitably end up cooking something that's poopy caca, it's like what an old chef of mine once told me, and this is a true story. Don't worry too much about it, because it all winds up shit anyway. Oh, why would I eat this burnt, bitter-tasting basilisk leg? I don't know. You could use it as a weapon. You could catapult it into a goblin's face. You could slyly switch it out with the corrupt king's meal and poison him. There's all sorts of creative things that you can do with these dishes that you and your players create. And you can start doing it with your players right now, at your very next session, with that free document that I left in the description down below. And you know what? If you use it and you like it, you can share this around with your homies. You can give me a comment down below that just lets me know that you thought this was cool, because that's really the only way I can keep making this kind of fun homebrew D&D content and put it out to the world. And I really, really appreciate it. All right, guys, let your players cook, and until next time, venture forth.